Let us now prepare as Fred leads us into a time of meditation.
All good, holy, holy. All good, holy, holy. All in my mind, in my heart, in my soul. Let me know all is good, holy, holy.
All is good. All is God. All is God. There is such beauty and such peace, such a pure presence of simply being in that knowing. I am created in the image and likeness of God. I am all that is. And in that knowing, in that deep knowing, I'm fully present to each experience without any resistance, analysis, interpretation, manipulation, or control. I simply am. For I know that in each and every moment, I am fully enough. Breathe into that. We are enough. And whatever has been is simply that. It has been. And it no longer has any control over us, only the control that we might give it. But we are enough. We simply see. We experience each sensation, thought, and emotion completely. And then we simply let it go. There's no need for us to create stories or for us to take on shame. It just is. And we are enough. And so now in this moment, let us go into the silence and simply be. And simply accept all that is in the silence. What a sweet moment this is. In the silence, I was reminded of the precious little child that was here at 9 o'clock, who during the music was out in the aisle, dancing and twirling, so present to that moment. Such a deep sense of just pure being in the now, and allowing that joy and love and expression come from that very core of her being. May we too be aware and accept and be fully present. And for this we are so grateful, and so it is. Amen.
Please join us in singing Holy.
have to wonder, Fred, because I saw that said piano improvisation up there, but something tells me you've been working on this since about Thursday when we had that conversation, so I'll do a piano improvisation. So how, that was planned, right? I mean, that was...
Not quite that long.
No?
In fact, no preparation.
No preparation, really. So just all out of the mind of Fred.
Yeah.
And
every once in a while, you take a little chance.
Yeah. There was a time when I was thinking maybe the mind of Fred was a frightening place, but I think, I would thank you for sharing that with us.
Some spots are kind of okay.
I like that. Thank you very much. Now, you also have your CDs, Revelation and Awaken to the Light, and you were telling me all of the tracks on those, it was just one take.
One take, all improvised.
Yes, one take straight through. So if you want to take more of this home with you, Fred will be out in the lobby after the services selling those. They're wonderful meditation CDs. But even beyond the meditation CD, if you have a child, a grandchild, or a neighbor that has a child that won't sleep and you want to help them with that process, I have been just so blessed with this CD. We put it on at home. I take Harper. She just turned 1. Take her up, put her down for a nap, and put on Revelation, and she gets this huge smile on her face, and then she flops over on her belly, her rear end goes straight up in the air, and she's out. So yeah, if you find you need a little help going to sleep, the CDs are available in the lobby. Well, welcome to week 2 of Fall Faith. Welcome to this continued exploration of how to live originally. How to live from the very source of light and love and God that we all are. Now, I don't know about you, but that's not really something that I've ever struggled to really get. I've known that. I've known that I'm the light and the love of God. I've known that I've had that power and presence within me. I know it intellectually. But living from that source, living originally, that's the part I struggle with. And so that's why this series was designed in the way that it's been designed. That's why we designed it to spend each week exploring a various spiritual practice, a practice that will allow us to really connect with that truth of what we are, with that original presence of God within us. Now, last week, we talked about self-awareness, and please know I'm not paying attention to who did what and who didn't, so I'm not going to go, Randy's not doing his self-awareness work, so nothing like that. But how many of you are doing, how's your self-awareness practice going? Is it okay? Are there any of you who have run into something that came up that you were aware of and you immediately were not pleased with what you saw? And you're like, oh, I didn't want to deal with this. And you didn't really know what to do with that? So you just kind of resisted it. You just kind of resisted those emotions that were coming up. You were aware of them, but it just kind of ended there. That happens. And that's what this week's practice is going to help you deal with. You see, this week we're going to explore the idea of deep self-acceptance. Of deep self-acceptance. And simply put, self-acceptance is just this idea that we accept everything that happens to us without adding anything onto it. And that's the hard part, right? Because as humans, we are hardwired to add stuff on to the things that we experience. Something happens and we immediately want to make a judgment. We react to what it is that's going on in the world around us. Well, this process of self-acceptance helps us become aware of not only how we're reacting, but how we can accept that reaction so that then we have the ability to make a different choice. I love the example that Robert uses in our book, Living Originally. He talks about this campfire metaphor. And he talks about the idea of self-acceptance like a campfire that we want to eventually burn out. So when something happens in our world, we don't throw another log onto that fire. And we're really good at that from time to time, right? There's stuff going on. Well, let's just add more to it. But we also don't want to try to do anything to extinguish it. We don't throw the water on it so that now our room's filled with smoke. We simply just let it burn out. And that's the practice that we're working on this week, this idea that we just accept what it is that's happening to us. Now, I don't want you to misunderstand me and to think that acceptance is the same thing as liking something. There's a big difference between accepting things as the way they are and liking them. Every one of us is going to go through experiences in our life where we experience pain or we experience some sort of suffering. And I don't think there are very many of us in this room that would say, I really like it when I go through pain. But if we accept that that's what we're going through, it makes it just so much easier to move through it. We realize that the discomfort that we're experiencing is just discomfort, and we don't have to add the, oh, gee, ain't it awful story about it. And I think we also need to realize that this idea of acceptance isn't just limited to those moments where we're experiencing pain or discomfort. It also relates to those times where we have great joy in our lives, those times where we're experiencing pleasure and fun. I know I'm not the only one that has caught myself on a vacation sitting there going, wow, this is really great, but I only have 2 days left. What can I do to hold on to this? How can I make this last longer? And see, what happens when we do that is we're coming out of this fear-based mentality, this fear-based belief that the joy, the pleasure that we're experiencing is limited and we'll never get it back. But if we can experience the joys of life without attachment to them, well, that's when we really get to experience joy. So this practice of acceptance helps us to be able to do that, to enjoy the wonders of life when they happen and to accept the discomfort and the pain when that happens. And to free ourselves from the resistance to those things that so often holds us back. Now, I know there's automatically immediate resistance that comes up when you talk about the idea of accepting things, because the first thing that we think is, oh, that makes me a doormat, right? I just have to accept everything that happens to me, everything that happens out in the world. I just have to accept it and move on with life because there's nothing I can do about that. Well, piffle to that. Each and every one of us has external situations that we want to change, that we need to change. This practice of self-acceptance isn't about accepting the things that are going on around us. It's about accepting our own emotional responses to those things. So please don't hear me say that if you're in an abusive relationship, you simply have to just accept that and move on. Don't hear me say that if you're suffering from an addiction to drugs or alcohol, that's just the way you are. Accept it and move on. What this process of self-acceptance does is it helps you to accept the feelings within you that cause those things to happen so that you can make a better choice. You can make a different choice. You can make the change in your life that you need to make. But there's a reason that the first step in any of the 12-step programs is admitting and accepting. Because until we're aware of it and we accept that this is our current status quo, we can't do a thing to change it, no matter how hard we try. In the book, Robert makes a wonderful distinction between this idea of reacting and responding. And with this practice of self-acceptance, what we're doing is we're moving from that place where we react to a place where we can respond. And when we respond from that God self within us, from that presence of the Christ within us. More often than not, we react to the external stimuluses of life, and I had this happen just last Friday. The thing to know about reacting is that it doesn't matter how spiritual you are, how well aware of the presence of God within you are. Stuff happens in the world around you, and you just react. Like I said, it happened just last Friday. I was driving home, and I had Harper in the car. I had my little dog in the car, and in front of me was this truck that was flying down that passing lane, and then he'd get up behind a car that wasn't going as fast, so he would, whip into the other lane, shoot by them, and then cut them off. And so I'm watching this happen, and all of a sudden I notice that I am not sharing the most Christ-like loving words with this individual. I'm saying, oh, what an idiot. What are you doing? It was maybe even a little more than that. I probably at one point might have needed to turn around to Harper and Harper, earmuffs, just don't listen to Daddy anymore. Well, for now. Still listen to Daddy, Harper. But this practice of self-acceptance helps us to realize that in that moment we weren't being our full Christ self. So we can become aware of it. And then once we become aware of it, we're able to accept that right here I wasn't living up to my full potential. And once I'm able to accept that, I can make a different choice. And just as an aside, the fun thing about whenever that happens to me in traffic is when I pull up to the stoplight and there's the truck sitting right next to me that was clearly in such a hurry. Always makes me laugh. Yeah. Good job, you made it. But that's what we're working on. That's this goal that we've set for ourselves. That's the intention that we set. Because I think it's important to also note that this is a process we're working towards. You see, we're going to have times where we, just like I did with that truck, where we forget the truth of what we are. So when that happens, we return to that intention, that our intention is to accept life as it appears in front of me. To not try to resist it, to not try to fight against it, but to accept it. You see, the power in this practice of self-acceptance is in learning to accept those things that we've resisted for so long. Because once we accept them, we're not fighting against them anymore. We're able to actually choose differently. But if we come from that place of reaction, oftentimes we react from those conditioned behaviors that are within us. And we all have those conditioned behaviors. You know, maybe it came when you were in elementary school and the teacher asked you, well, just stand up in front of the class and speak. And you stuttered a little bit, and maybe the kids made fun of you. And so you learned, well, I'm not going to stand up and speak because I get made fun of. Or you had that moment where you reached out and touched the stove and it was hot and it burned your hand. And so every time you start to get close to that heat, you remember that time where you were burned and it caused you pain. And so those feelings of pain come up within you. We all have those experiences. And until we become aware of them and accept them as the truth of the way we respond, when the outside world does what it does, we'll automatically respond from that place. We won't be able to become aware and accept and respond from our Christ selves. So the power in this process of acceptance is all in learning to accept those things that you've resisted. This is not an easy practice. We resist things because they've caused us pain, because they've hurt us. It's not for the faint of heart to accept these sort of things. And I said it last week, I'll say it again. If you find yourself in a place where you need just a little bit of extra support or a lot of support, utilize the resources that this ministry offers. See a spiritual counselor, talk to Reverend Jan, Reverend Bob, myself, talk to a prayer chaplain. That's the beauty of being in the spiritual community, is that we don't have to go through this journey alone. We can rely on each other. So just as we did last week, we're going to have an opportunity to practice some radical self-acceptance. I'm going to move my chair up front here. You know, at the first service, I started to move this, and I was told the ushers could handle that for me. And, you know, here we are again, and you guys are just sitting right there watching me carry stuff. I mean, you said you don't really pay attention to begin with, but, I mean, it's... Oh, okay. So we need to talk about the roles and responsibilities for ushers. All right, I accept the things that are happening. So there are two forms to this practice. There's an informal practice. And the informal practice of deep self-acceptance is about spending every moment of your day accepting what's in front of you. Remember, you do not have to like it. That's okay if you don't like what's in front of you. The practice of self-acceptance also doesn't say that you can't try to change it. You can change what's happening. But before you can do that, you have to accept the reality that's in front of you. So the informal practice is just to spend time doing exactly that. When something comes up, we accept it, and we see if there's a different choice we can make. We don't resist. We don't struggle against it. The formal practice is what we're going to take some time to do right now. And just as we did last week, we'll do this in a time of meditation. And so if you would just make yourself comfortable, whatever that looks like for you. If it's comfortable to close your eyes, close your eyes. If you have space on the pew and you even want to lay down, whatever is comfortable to you. And we turn within. We focus on the breath, on breathing in and out. And as our mind begins to wander, we just return our thoughts to our breath, focusing only on the breathing. And as we continue to breathe, we allow ourselves to become aware of anything that is resisting this present moment. Any of those thoughts and beliefs that pop up that draw our attention away. Any ideas that are just stewing in our mind about interactions that could have gone better. Whatever comes up, we simply become aware of it, we accept it, and we return to our breathing. And so for this time of connection, this time of accepting what is, we are grateful. For the insights, the revelations that have come to us, we are grateful. And so it is. Amen. This is the sort of practice that can really and truly transform your life. And the more we learn to become aware of and accept the situations in the world around us, the more we're able to live from that presence of God within us. And the more we're able to live originally. God bless you all, and I'll see you next week. We're going to explore radical forgiveness. So I'll see you then. I move my chair forward here a little bit. I'm glad I remembered this time that I'm also blessing the love offering. Usually I walk down and I'm standing next to Bob, and Bob leans over and goes, "You're blessing the love offering." Oh yeah, come back up. Before we do that, though, I would like to have just a very, very frank and honest discussion with all of you about where Unity Church of Overland Park is financially at this moment. I struggled a little bit with how to share this news with you, but I also know that as a ministry, you've asked for us to be more transparent and more open with you about where we are financially and other things that are going on. And so I wanted to share this with you, but I also wanted to be sure that I was doing this from a place that didn't come from fear, that didn't go against that core value that we have of abundance, that core value that says that our divine good comes from God and that we know that and accept that. But I also think it was incredibly appropriate that today, when we were discussing the idea of awareness and acceptance, that we took a look at what these finances looked like. Because what I know to be true is that until we become aware of the financial state and we accept the current situation as it is, we're not going to be able to change it. And so with that in mind, I've got a couple of numbers that I'd like to share with you. And the first one's behind me right now. And that number is $378,874.20. That number is our fiscal year to date. The fiscal year here at Unity Church of Overland Park is May through April. So this is from last May to right now, not including the 9 a.m. service. This is the income that we have brought in here at Unity Church of Overland Park. This $300,000 or so comes from your love offerings. It comes from class revenue. It comes from facility rentals and a few other sources. But this is the income that we have at this point. This is what's come in. And if we take a look at the next slide, what you'll see is the reason why I'm sitting here in front of you today. This next number, this $389,999, these are our expenses for our year to date here at Unity Church of Overland Park. These are the funds that go to providing these wonderful musicians every Sunday. This is what goes into having these lights on so that you can see me and not just hear me. It's the cost of air conditioning the building, which I'm told is on. It's hard to tell with the lights on me. It's very warm. But it's the cost of air conditioning the building. These are the fall faith books that the children are studying upstairs in youth and family ministry. It's the ink, the printing costs, the staff time, and those bulletins that you're holding in your hand. This is what it's cost to operate Unity Church of Overland Park from May to this point right now. And if you take a look at the next slide, you'll see that we're about we are $11,125.02 short of what our expenses have been to this year to date. Now, where I struggled with this was because I didn't want to sit here and have it come across in any way, shape, or form like I was sitting here going, this number needs to change or we're going to start cutting things. But unfortunately, the truth of the matter is that if this number doesn't start changing, we have to make some very difficult decisions about how we can continue to operate as a community. Now, the simple answer to this is just to have me sit here and say, give more, and leave it at that. But what I know to be true, and this is what I've found out when I've looked at nationwide statistics, and this is nationwide. This isn't just in our area. The numbers will vary if you look at any specific area. But nationwide, Americans, 88% of us, live paycheck to paycheck or worse. And so for me to just say give more doesn't really solve our issue, because I know that so many of you out there are already giving all that you are able to give right now. And what I want you to hear me say is thank you so very much. I appreciate each and every one of you. I also want you to hear me say that as a board, as a leadership team, the key leaders in our congregation, We have some wonderfully exciting plans coming, starting in January and on into next year, to help make that 88% number get smaller, so that more of us are in a position to give more. I want each of you to imagine what this community could really, truly do for the expression of the Christ in our world if we were able to fully give from our resources all that we had. But we have to make a culture shift first. And that shift is coming. So in the meantime, I'd like to speak to those of you who have maybe a little bit more margin there. Those of you who are able to give just a little bit more. And what I want to do is ask you to look within. Look to that presence of God within you and see if you're being guided to give more at this time. We have amazing plans for where we're going here at Unity Church of Overland Park. And I would love us to be in that position where one of you comes to me and says, I have an amazing social service program. And I can say, absolutely, let's do it. We have the resources to make that happen. And I'd love for us to be in that place where a refrigerator breaks down and we're able to just replace it and not have to reschedule an event. But until this number changes, we're not in that place. So if you do have the ability to give a little bit more, I'd like to ask that you join with me in giving a little bit more. Somebody once told me that if each one of us gave just $5 more, that number wouldn't have parentheses around it. And that may be true. But what I also know is that some of us don't have $5 more to give. We're already giving all that we have. I understand. I've been there. I was in that place once where that phone would ring and I'd actually just unplug it because I knew the person on the other end of the line was asking for money that I didn't have. So if you're in that place, just hold on. There's plans coming, there's programs coming to help you with that. But if you can give more, I want you to hear me say that your spiritual family, the spiritual community, we need you right now. We need this number to start changing. And I know that together as a community, we can make that happen. So let's bless our love offering. We'll take our gifts, our tithes, and our hand. And as we do, we bless them because we know that the source of our abundance is divine. We know that we live in the divine flow of God. And that this gift is simply a tangible experience of that. And so because of that, we joyously give, knowing that that forever links us to this circle of giving and receiving. Knowing that these blessings pour forward into Unity Church of Overland Park, and that they pour forward into our own lives as a result. And for that, we are grateful. Amen.